All right, perfect. Again, so my name is Lucas Rodriguez. So this is the first part of a three-part series. Hopefully you can make all three. If you already have one of the products and just want to learn more, you could also attend. Again, I will be sending out a recording. So if you like that information, you can always sign up and I'll make sure I get that over to you after too as well. All right. So today, again, I introduced myself with me. I'm very excited. I have Adam Larson. Adam is one of our great solution engineers. He's the other one on camera right now. He will be the one presenting curriculum and instruction today and really showing how curriculum is the forefront to our unified classroom and our PIMA approach that we are looking at. So really when it comes to PIMA, you have your planning, which is what we're going to focus on today with curriculum instruction. Engage, which would be the next stage next week through Schoology, and then monitor, which would be in 2 weeks with Performance Matters. Then all in all, then you end up with adjust. And adjust allows you, really at any point you can adjust along the way. So if you're either adjusting your curriculum maps or your lesson plans, or you're adjusting the content that's being delivered within Schoology, or even the types of reports and the type of data that you're tracking within Performance Matters, ideally you should be adjusting all along the whole path. So, but that idea of a constant circle, that's never ending. You're always planning, you're always engaging, you're always monitoring. And how we do that within PowerSchool is really with our unified classroom products and our new personalized learning cloud that we're rolling out and we'll continue to develop this year. We have some really exciting things coming out with regards to the personalized learning cloud. So please stay tuned. I have some big important releases that I'll send out emails to in March and April. So keep an eye on that, but some exciting stuff that Adam and I can't wait to demo. So, but anyways, today, again, we're going to focus on the mapping side, how you build out those curriculum maps, align them to state standards, national standards, even local custom standards that you guys have. We could support all of that. From there, you have your lesson planning, and the lesson planning tool works great for integrating with Schoology as well as Google Classroom. So you don't always need Schoology. I mean, we would love it, but we understand some schools still use Google Classroom. We integrate very well with Google Classroom too as well. So there's that support. Again, the idea for all of this is to make it as simple as possible for your teachers. We want a connected learning environment. We want to make it easy for your students when they're taking either a test or their day-to-day, that it's all in the same environment, and for the teachers to have data move seamlessly, especially when it comes to standards from one product to the next. Here's a little quick overview on that. Again, that personalized learning cloud. We're going to be focusing on these top two, and the one on the left. No, we do support some other things too, special programs depending on your state. We do support IEPs and 504s. We have a behavior support tool formerly known as Kickboard that integrates very well with both Schoology and Performance Matters in terms of behavioral tracking, and then Naviance for high school readiness. And we even now have some new stuff for your elementary schools and your middle school students in terms of helping them prepare for what they want to do the rest of their lives outside of school. Do they want to go to the Army, the military, college, a trade school? All of that's supported within there. And if you have any questions on any of this, feel free to reach out to me after. All right, so diving into today's topic on curriculum and instruction. We're going to be looking at the integrated design between the two platforms and how those seamlessly connect together to make it easier for when you're creating those curriculum maps, either at a department level or an administrative level, or even a teacher level, how easy it is to bring that content then into a lesson plan and then seamlessly update it into a learning management system, i.e. being it Schoology or Google Classroom. We want to show how easy that is, the analytics that you get from it, the feedback, the tracking, all of that within the solution. Some of this I will quickly touch on. Most of it Adam's going to cover, so I don't want to bore you guys too much on the slide side, but I do think it is important to at least briefly highlight it. Again, we want to make it easy and to collaborate, and really that's, I think, the biggest key word is how do I have all this in a central location that's easy for all my staff to work together, and then also easy for transparency when it comes to the administrative staff to have access to it too as well. You're not having to request those lesson plans or request those curriculum maps to be submitted to you days in advance. It's easily available at any time. Same goes with lesson planning. Again, collaboration, visibility are the two big keywords that I like to highlight when it comes to it. But I'd rather let Adam show us all the fun features. So with that being said, I'll pause. I talked enough. Adam, I took up 8 minutes. I'll let you take over and we'll dive right in. Again, if you have any questions, you could throw them in the chat. We will have some time at the end too if you want to unmute yourself at the end and ask any questions, but feel free to plug them into the chat as well. Thanks, Adam.
Perfect. Lucas, during your introduction, my mind kept thinking about that never-ending teaching and learning cycle. I kind of got held up on that, but it really is true. We're thankful for everyone in attendance today. And Lucas, of course, thank you for the invite. I feel honored to be the first solution engineer to help out with this personal learning cloud webinar series that you put together. My name's Adam Larson. I've been with the company for a number of years, but before that was in education myself as a classroom teacher, as an instructional technology kind of specialist. Even worked at the district level at a 200,000 student district for a number of years before coming over to the PowerSchool family. And it really is, when we think about PowerSchool, that there are so many different solutions that can really help you move forward. And as Lucas mentioned, today we're focusing specifically on curriculum instruction, talking about that tool, and know that it is a standalone tool. So if it is something that you're interested in, you don't have to have those other pieces. Like even Lucas mentioned, if you have Google Classroom, for instance, you'll be able to see how this tool can help you with that process. Obviously, Schoology is one that we would recommend. We're biased in that, but just know it really can be something that can help you. So in order to cover the platform, I think sufficiently, I need to really do this in kind of two kind of paths. The first one that we're going to talk about is the curriculum side, and the second is the instruction. Curriculum is where your scope and sequences, your unit guides, your pacing calendars, all those things are going to be built and be able to be analyzed, as Lucas was mentioning. And then the second half, when it comes to instruction, is the actual lesson planning process and how tightly that lesson planning process is connected with the curriculum process. And there's a lot of admin tools that are available for you to oversee even the lesson planning that's happening, regardless of what kind of lesson planning you're actually doing in your district. So really excited to be able to talk about that. So what you see on my screen right now, which I'm sharing, is the actual curriculum instruction kind of homepage. I see both lessons and curriculum right here. I am logged in as Shelly. Shelly's a unique role. She has both kind of district admin functionality, but she's also a teacher at heart, where she actually has lessons that she's delivering. We want to make sure that we showed you everything from one view. So that's why we have Shelly. And today I'm going to start off by talking about curriculum. So when I click the curriculum button, it takes me to the curriculum homepage where Shelly is greeted with some information about just curriculum in general, her recent maps that she's been working on. And normally she would actually just jump right into that grade 3 math map to start working. And then on the right-hand side of what's happening in curriculum. One thing in general that I think you'll notice as I go through the presentation is how collaborative UCCI really is. Even from the very get-go, when a user comes in, they know exactly what's been happening with those curriculum maps that they're either working on or receiving. So they have the ability to see that information right there and even jump to those locations if needed. Now, like I said, most times she would just click right there on the grade 3 math demo, but I just want to showcase a couple of other things here on the left-hand side. The first is the curriculum maps. This is going to be an aggregation of all the maps that are being built at the district. And a lot of times we're talking with districts that have 3-ring binders that they're printing out, or they have a Google Drive filled with different maps. With this tool, you have everything that you need in one place. So for instance, if I want to search by a keyword or by a tag, I can simply put in math, search, and now every single map is searched and I can find the ones that I need. Now, maps in general have both published and draft modes. I'll talk about that more as I get into this, but just know you can always see them both here. And when you click on a particular map, which for instance, if I click on this, maybe grade 3 math, you'll see on the right-hand side a preview of that map itself. And this one is pretty full. It not only has units, but subunits, a lot of different lessons that are delineated. We can showcase this a little bit later on. But for today's purposes, we're going to go to this grade 3 math demo, where when I click on that, I see 9 units over at the side. What you'll also notice is that I can see the map owner. I can see overall standards that are aligned. I can see tags that are associated with it. So there's just more ways for you to be able to actually see the maps themselves, and not to mention some other functionality, which I'll talk about as I get into the map and later on as I'm trying to compare this map with others. Now, before I jump in, I just want to point out there's also certain maps that can be starred. So if you are actually kind of at the department level and you're needing to oversee a lot of different math lessons, for instance, you could star those. If you want to run certain reports to be able to see the information about your standard analysis or just overall completion of maps, you have the ability to do that. Even the ability to build templates. So if you want to be able to create templates for your maps, which I'll get into as I'm actually in this in the map here in this moment, there's an ability to do that as well. For the sake of today, I'm probably just gonna jump right into a map, but just know if you want to have a follow-up conversation, more than happy to talk about those pieces. Now, for right now, let's go into Unit 2, though, of our Grade 3 math. And when I do, this actually takes me into the curriculum map itself. So this is all Grade 3 math. On the left-hand side, you'll see the list of different units. It's really easy at any time. If I need to add a unit, I simply go to New Unit. I can give it a number. I give it a title. I can also change the color of the map of the unit, which allows me to better see how standards have been aligned to it, where it lines up on the pacing calendar. You'll see that as I go. But in addition, I can select the duration of this unit. For instance, how many lessons or days are associated with it. It's important to do that because in the pacing calendar, you'll actually see that based upon those lessons. So just know there's always that possibility. Now, when I go into a unit itself, so I've got Unit 2 pulled up here, you're going to see these gray headers. These gray headers are part of the template. So when this template was developed for Grade 3 math, these are the desired areas that were created: standards, desired results, assessment evidence, things like that. But right now, you might be looking at this and saying to yourself, Adam, I don't call them standards. We call them learning objectives, or it's not desired results, it's essential questions. Well, good news, whatever you want that to be, it's up to you. This is simply a template that we've chosen, but you can use any template that works best for you. Even if you want to create less or more fields, you have the ability to do that too. So that's always up to you. But let's start talking about what's actually here and showcasing some of the ease of use of the platform in general. So with this particular unit, I have standards that are associated with it, and these standards are listed here, but let me show you how those standards come in. So whenever that curriculum map is built, you can choose what standards that you want to leverage. In this particular example, I have the National Common Core Grade 3 selected. And from there, I get a list of all the different standards. And from here, I can literally click on the button to remove them or to add them. It's easy to go back and forth with those pieces. And once those standards are aligned, it's easier for me to see how overall content is being kind of put up with those standards. You'll see that as I go through the platform. Sometimes I get a question though of Adam, we have the Common Core standards, but we have our own state standards that we're looking at, or we might have created our own standards that we're trying to kind of analyze these maps by. Good news, you can have as many standards in here as you need, and you can align it even to the ones that you want to update or kind of import. Obviously, it comes with some set standards, but we have a lot of things that are available for you. Lucas, we actually get on a lot of calls, right, with districts who are using Google Docs where they're having to copy and paste those standards one at a time. With this, it's all in the system ready to go for them. In addition to the standards area, though, if I scroll down some more, you'll see the next kind of field, which is desired results. This is an example of our kind of a content area, content window, where a user can literally put in whatever content that you want. And this editor, this rich text editor, really allows for functionality very similar to Google or to Microsoft. So you can create text, add fonts, change colors, create tables, add images, add videos, create links, symbols. All those things are going to be available right here. And in addition to that, if Lucas, for instance, was in this document with me, I'd see his cursor. I'd actually see his icon up here at the top, and we'd be able to work collaboratively on this. And if at any time I made a change that I wanted him to check out, I could literally click on this comment button, and now that becomes a place for me to share that feedback and say, hey, Lucas, make sure that you have checked this out. I want to know how you think I worded this. There's an ability to do that right here for that asynchronous workflow. In addition to that, though, as I'm going through this content, I can build this however I want this to be. I can also align this particular piece of content to standards. So if there's kind of areas that I want to do that, I can. And then also I can upload files or even attach from Google right here as well. Again, we work with districts that sometimes have a lot of content built in old legacy type curriculum tools, or even using Google and Microsoft. Sometimes those tools don't allow for a kind of an import. So with that said, you can actually get PDF copies and attach them directly into the maps themselves. Sometimes the content that you build doesn't have to be replicated in UCCI. Sometimes you just need to have a reference to it. We work with all that during implementation to kind of walk you through the right steps to make sure that you're moving forward successfully. And if I scroll through this area, you'll see just more examples of how content can be built. In this particular unit, you have assessment evidences, where you have actual activities for users to be able to do with students that are tied to standards, that are tied to rubrics, things like that. So just know, a lot of great ways to build content in these maps. We've actually seen some examples, and I think I even see Shannon on the call, where we have exemplar lessons that are being built out. There's a lot of great examples of that that can be done here in the maps. Now, let's say that map has been built out, though, right? Not only for Unit 2, but for all these other pieces. There's other options that are also available. So for instance, if I go up to the top here and I go to options, I have the ability to print this off as a PDF. So if I need to have a printed copy of this map, I have the ability to do that. And from here, I can select what particular units are exported. I can choose what fields are exported. So maybe I don't want to have all those fields sent out. I have the ability to do that. And of course, changing how they're actually titled in the orientation. So I can create a PDF, have that printed, things like that. But in addition to that, I can also share this out. And when I click that share button, I would get a link that I can now make available to the community to be able to see what's actually happening with the curriculum. So whether that's part of the internal community in terms of the other teachers that might just need to be aware of what's going on in grade 3 math, or even the parent community, I have the ability to share those things out. In fact, if I click on another tab up here at the top, this is an example of maps that are available for Apple Grove Unified School District that any user can go to and be able to access. Now, with that said, remember, some of these maps, you can choose what's shown. So if you don't want to have all the content made available, like maybe you have assessment strategies that you don't want to be publicly out there, that's fine. You don't have to have those parts published, but the overall standards or essential questions, those can be. So it really helps with some of those, especially state regulations that have been coming down on our districts to provide that. Lucas, it might be interesting too, just at the end, just to see if anyone wants to put in the chat, like, are they having some of those kind of regulations coming on them? Are they required by the state to make this open to the community? That's something that we definitely want to be able to showcase and we can help with.
Yeah, very good call, Adam. I mean, it's getting very popular across all the states, like it or not. But yeah, it's very much something that's coming out soon.
Yeah, from New Jersey to Arizona to a lot of the northern states, we've had that happen. So, all right. So from this point, you might be saying, Adam, wow, it looks really convenient in terms of how things are aggregated with all the map listing. When those maps are actually built, I like the ability to templatize, and then also the kind of the collaborative nature of the map itself as I'm building content. A lot of great features there. I'm a little biased and I might be putting words in your mouth, but hopefully you're all thinking that. But one of the questions that you might be asking is saying, Adam, you know what? We have tools that we've used for our curriculum maps. What makes this different? And the reason why you might be asking that is that you might not be familiar with a tool that's been built for curriculum maps. So this is not just a place where you're adding in content so you can get a checkbox, making sure that, my curriculum is done. This is a tool that you can leverage to help analyze the maps that you've actually built. And that actually starts with even our standards tab. When I click on the standards tab, it's going to showcase all the standards that have been associated with a map. I can turn on and off various fields in the map themselves. So I can go ahead and turn on and off some of these different pieces. I can even choose which units that I want to look at. But when I do that, I now have a list of all those standards. Now, there's a lot of standards here that I'm looking at. So if I want to search by a particular standard, or if I want to actually see those standards that are in use versus not in use, I have the ability to do that as well. But the benefit of this is that as I click on a standard, I can see what that standard actually is. I can see the units that it's leveraged in, but then also I can see the specific standard and how it's been tied into things like assessment evidences or resources. And when I click on that actual piece, it'll pull up that component of the map and allow me to edit it if I need to, or even add comments for other users. So the idea here is that you can really start looking through the maps that you've built and editing it or adding to it or just having a conversation about it during this process. I know even like one of the things that a lot of our districts will do is that they'll want to see those that are not in use. So yeah, okay, that's great that I have 29 of the 48 that are covered, but what about those others? You have the ability to see that as well. And then again, start adding particular standards to units where you just might have overlooked them. So again, a lot of great ways to be able to see how those standards have actually been aligned. And again, this is kind of going back to that whole thought process that it's not just having standards there so you can get that checkbox, but it's actually aligning standards to the map that you can better use to look at these maps later on. Hopefully that's going to be something that resonates with a lot of you as you're watching this. In addition to that, though, there's also a pacing tab. I really like this tab because as you're building out the units, you're setting the duration of the lessons, right? The number of days it would possibly take. And then as you do that, you have those units automatically put on the calendar. So that now I have unit 1 covering 9 days, unit 2 covering about 10 days or so. And when I click on this, if I need to change the duration, I can literally go to maybe 8 lessons because I've kind of saved time there, and I can go save, and now that saves automatically. And all the other units adjust accordingly. So there's some really big benefit in terms of building out units, aligning it to kind of the pacing and having that automatically here. But also at the district level, let's say some of you are in some of the northern states that have had that really bad cold weather, or you might be having some flooding in some of the lower southern states. Regardless, if you have an inclement weather day, and maybe today, on the February 7th, keep me honest, Lucas, I believe it's February 7th. Let's say that day
it's the 8th, Adam. You lost the day there.
It's the 8th. I knew I was one day off. So the idea here is that if February 8th is one of those inclement weather days, at the district level, you can put a Wednesday as that inclement weather day. The bank day that you had in April now is an instructional day. And now every single map that has a pacing calendar is adjusted accordingly. That's the kind of efficiency that this tool brings, because we know that the maps that you build have certain amount of durations, and those durations need to be represented in a calendar, and that calendar needs to be adjusted at a district level. That's a tool that's built for curriculum maps. All right. The funny thing is, Lucas, when I was talking with the district, I think it was about 2 weeks ago, they said, Adam, you sold us just with that. The amount of time it takes us to go into 120 some odd documents to change just a particular date that was now a holiday or something like that. It really does save some time. All right, activity. The other piece of this is that as those maps are being built out, remember, this is a collaborative experience. So if you want to know what kind of activity's been done, what Shelly's been up to, or others, you always have the ability to do that and also jump into any of those changes. But remember, the maps themselves, these are a constantly process of building. So right now I'm in a draft mode, but if I go to the version history, I can see the published version. I can see the actual one that's been published out, or I can go back to any other previous version of this. So there's always the ability to kind of go where I need to see the things about the map itself. Okay. Last one that I want to talk about in this curriculum, and this is going to be a little bit of a teaser because I mentioned at the beginning, curriculum is tightly connected to lesson planning. And this is something that I think makes a big difference to our districts. So I mentioned in the beginning that I was working at a 200,000 student district. One of my responsibilities, not only to ensure technology integration as a whole, but to make sure that technology tools were being used efficiently, is I was working with a curriculum team. And the curriculum team at a 200,000 student district is quite extensive. And one of my jobs was to make sure, I kid you not, that all their Word documents were left aligned. As we printed out documents and put them in binders, there are so many times that a user would come in, make changes, and it wouldn't be left aligned anymore. So my job was to make sure that everything was kind of copacetic that way, aesthetically speaking. And when I was doing that and we were printing out these binders, one of the questions I always asked was, how do we know that the things that we're creating here are going to be a benefit to the classroom? And a lot of times it was just like a hope for the best. We create it and hopefully they'll come. Well, with this tool, not only are you building great curriculum maps easily and efficiently and having a lot of tools besides, but if I click on the Insights tab, I can now see all the different teachers that are associated with a map. And pretend, for instance, Shelly, that was kind of more like a principal here looking at a group of teachers. Well, when she looks at Cedric or Shelly, she can actually see these icons and it'll tell her whether or not that teacher has content, have they attached standards, have they imported content, or are they leveraging a curriculum map? There's an ability to see all those things. And in fact, if I go to Shelly here and click on this particular day, it now opens up the lesson plan that Shelly's built based upon that Unit 2 curriculum map. And from the district level, you can even provide feedback saying, Shelly, I really like how you've leveraged that assessment evidence piece. Or maybe you're asking questions about how did that lesson actually go? Would love to hear feedback on that particular piece or that essential question. Do you feel it was answered? You have the ability to do that all within this particular tool. And that's a game changer because, again, this is a tool that's been built for curriculum instruction that really allow you to see those bigger kind of questions. Now, Lucas, I know that sometimes during this point, I get a lot of questions from the audience, and there might be some of that here. So again, feel free to chat if you have any. But if you do want to have more deeper dives into this, more than happy to have future conversations about that. So just want to put that out there.
Yeah, Adam, doing great so far. Hasn't been any questions that I haven't been able to answer. So
Perfect.
Thank you, Adam.
Yep. All right, let's go back to the curriculum map. And there's one more thing I want to talk about curriculum before I actually get into the instructional or lesson planning aspect. And that is our compare map. So a lot of times districts, as they are building out curriculum maps, what they're needing to do is seeing how, whether it's a vertical alignment, so across grade levels, or a horizontal alignment, so across subject areas, how are particular standards or things being taught. So within the tool, if I go to grade 2 math and I click on compare map, which I just clicked on, and I want to add in some other maps here. So let's go ahead and go to math again as my keyword or my tag. I'm going to click on grade 3 and grade 4. When I go to compare curriculum maps, I'm now going to see those curriculum maps side by side. So here's my Unit 1 for all my curriculum maps, which is always kind of sharing that same template. So it's easy to kind of see that information and how it flows from one to the other. And I can, from one spot, be able to see everything that I need. So you're not having to open up 3 different binders. You don't have 3 different Google Docs open. Everything is right here for you to be able to see. And that's a big win for a lot of you watching. But in addition to that, if I want to type by a particular keyword or standard, so let's say I type in the word divide. If I want to see by keyword or by standard, when I select that, it's now going to automatically show matches of that standard or keyword with the various maps. So from one click, I can now analyze as many maps as I need and be able to show progression of a particular standard over time in terms of grade years, and how that continues to grow. When I was worked at a district, one of the things that we would do for professional development is that we'd have a whole day set aside where we go into a room, we'd print out standards and put them on pieces of white paper around the room. And we'd have these different color highlighters. And what we would do, each of us was responsible for a particular standard, and we'd have to find how that standard interacts in those different levels. And it would be a whole day project doing that. With this tool, it took me 5 seconds to figure that out. And now I can really start analyzing how what's being taught in grade 3 impacts grade 4. Again, this is a tool that's been built for curriculum and something that I can think really help you move forward. Not to mention, if you are the kind of person that's looking at this and really excited about it, but you might not think other people are, if I click that share button, I get a generated URL taking users to this analysis so they can see it for themselves. So you can share the joy of vertical or horizontal alignment with a team around you. All right. So, Lucas, sometimes it's like drinking out of a fire hose. There's not a lot coming at them there, but hopefully that was helpful in terms of them seeking the curriculum side of things. Again, appreciate you following along in the chat. But I think it might be helpful for us to move on to the lesson side of things, which is kind of the instructional piece of UCCI. Does that make sense for you?
Yeah, that works perfect.
All right, so let's go ahead and switch gears here. So now we're going from Shelly, the curriculum director, the principal type role, to a teacher. And when I do that, I'm going to click on lessons and I'm going to go to the day planner. So when we're talking with districts who are building curriculums, oftentimes we like to talk about how are they doing lesson plans. And lesson plans is really, it's different for a lot of districts. Sometimes we have districts that are hoping teachers do lesson plans. Like there's no formal process. It's just something that they're desiring for teachers to do, but that's about it. To the far other extreme, where you have districts that are saying, oh, every Monday morning, they have to have all their lesson plans submitted for the next week. So it's like they almost have a week, like a window before they're actually delivering those lesson plans. Well, regardless, whatever those situation is, a lot of those districts have in similar that they want to make sure that lesson plans are easy for teachers, right? That's a key, and that the lesson plans that are being built align to curriculum. That's a concern. They want to make sure that the lessons that are being done in the classroom are actually kind of following along with curriculum. And again, how well you oversee that process is going to be up to you, but those two things are going to be important. So let's talk about how that works. So again, I'm as Shelly. I'm here on Wednesday and I have grade 3 math. I have actually a couple of different classes and I don't have time to go into all of this, but just know there's a way for a timetable to be created so that a teacher can have all their preps in one place so they don't have to go to a bunch of different locations. By the way, hopefully your teachers aren't teaching Algebra 1, grade 10 science, and also grade 3 ELA. That's a lot of subject areas to cover. But the idea here is that as that lesson plans are being built, a user can see it by day, week, or month. All that's available for them. But when they go into a particular day, you'll notice that day 1 through day 4, so Monday through Thursday, are all done. When I go into a lesson plan that doesn't have any content, I have two options. I have an add content button and a choose template. I'm going to talk about choose template here in a moment, but let's start by going to add content. So when a teacher goes in the add content button, they literally have the ability to add in whatever lesson plan that they want. So if they want to create it based upon a 5E model, if they want to create it based upon the warm up and kind of the activity and then the closing, you can do whatever you need. And this is a rich text editor. So today I will be ... right? They can build just like they would in a Google Doc or some other type of tool. This is again familiar to them because they have that rich text editor with images and videos, the ability to upload files, pull in from Google or Microsoft, all that's available there. But as they do this, one of the pieces that is going to be really helpful is that they're going to see the curriculum map. So grade 3 math is tied to unit 2 in this situation. Let's go ahead and I'll just connect that to unit 2. And when I have that unit 2 as part of the curriculum map here, if I click on unit content at the bottom right, I can now pull up the curriculum map for grade 3 math for unit 2 right here. So when I was in the classroom, for instance, right, I'd go over to my shelf, I'd grab my 3-ring binder, come back to my desk, open it up, figure out what unit I'm on, and then start planning accordingly. And then, of course, return that binder to that shelf. With this, the teacher literally has to click the button and it pulls up right for them. So it's a really easy process for them to be able to access that. And not only that, if they want to find some content that's there, sometimes you might have yours built out where, hey, yeah, there's this great assessment evidence piece like this Minecraft activity. If I go to the top of the lesson, I now have added that into my lesson area. So the curriculum map not only can guide their overall lesson planning process, but you can build it in a way that they can take components of it and add it to their lesson plan. So a lot of great ways for the curriculum to be tied to the lesson planning process in general. But in addition to all that, sometimes, when I'm doing that kind of presentation, a person will say, well, Adam, you know what, we don't have those kind of components yet, right? We don't have exemplar lessons, things for teachers to leverage, but we do have an idea of what we want them to do. Well, what that would be able to provide is a template. So for instance, for this particular class, I can go to the lesson plan template, and there it can be as many templates as you need in this process. And when I go to save, I now automatically populate this lesson with a kind of a table for me to set up. When do I start? When do these different activities, what's happening during these different activities? And now that's automatically part of my lesson. So again, going back to my personal example, I was a science teacher and we did the 5E model. So every lesson I did always had those 5Es, and I needed to fill out that information. And what I filled out was always based upon what I was doing that day, but having that template to start from would have saved me so much time. So with that said, there's also different functionality in terms of the lessons themselves. So for instance, if you want to import lessons that you've already created, there's so many great ways for the lessons that are built to be shared with yourself in the coming years. If you actually are working with a team of teachers, those lessons can be accessible and leveraged. There's so many great ways for lessons to actually be imported into the system. But in addition, those lessons can be shared. So if you need to print them off, you have the ability to do that. If you need to share that with your own resources, if you have this as a group of lessons that are using with others, you can do that there. And in addition to all that, if you need to have this lesson shared out with Google Classroom, you can actually make this a material type where now there will be a link to this lesson plan as part of your Google Classroom. Even better, if you use Schoology, you have the ability to have that part of the learning management system experience where it's going to be right there. So the lesson planning doesn't have to be that far from the actual lesson provisioning or creation process that you're actually delivering to students. By the way, really quickly about Schoology, I know we're going to be talking about this during our next webinar series, Lucas, but even the ability to actually search through Schoology material that are aligned to this date and correctly align it to the lesson plan, there's even the ability to do that. So a lot of great functionality along those lines and good things to come too.
Yeah, lots of exciting things to come. So looking forward to that later this year.
So the other aspect of this is like, okay, Adam, that's great about the lesson plans. I love how it's going to be an easy tool for teacher to actually build from. It's organized really well. They're not having to use some kind of like multiple Google Docs to do all this or calendars. So that's all great. But you didn't answer yet how this helps me at the district level or as a principal. Well, here's how that comes into play. If I go to admin tool and I go to organizational settings, and let's kind of take off Shelly's teacher hat here and let's think about her as a principal, let's say. If I go to lesson feedback, I now have the ability to see all the lessons that teachers are building. So I have those by week, by day, by month. And if I click on Cedric, let's say, I can now go to Cedric and I can see Monday through Thursday, he has lessons planned out. He's still working on Friday's lesson. And let's say it's Wednesday at 9:40 Central Time for me. That means he's in third grade math right now, section 2. If I click on that, it actually pulls up his lesson plan for that day. So I can know exactly what he's doing. If I were to walk down that hallway and actually see, there's not a hallway here, but let's say there was, if I walk down that hallway, I could go into his classroom, I could see the lesson that he's delivering and compare that with the lesson plan that was actually created in this tool. And from here, I could leave him feedback for him. Like, hey, I noticed that you were following along that lesson plan. Thank you so much for being mindful of those essential questions and really getting those students to those I can type statements. Or the feedback might be, you know what, I saw some discrepancies there. We'd love to talk about it sometime in the future. So regardless of the kind of feedback that you're providing, it's going to be right there for that particular user. And that overall lesson feedback can also be aggregated in a way for you to better see just what's happening. So for instance, if I select Chalk High School here, I can see that 64% of my teachers have planned a lesson for this kind of month. 36% have gotten feedback, and only 9% have actually attached a unit. And when I actually dive into this, I can now see specific teachers that are using the tool and how many of them are actually using that curriculum map or even attaching standards. Maybe the big problem is that they're not sharing lessons with each other or importing lessons. So that's something that you can always follow up in on as well. And of course, at any time, actually clicking on that particular user to actually see the lesson plans that are going on and viewing their account in general. There's a lot of things that you can do from the admin side. And again, one thing I want to put in front of everyone's mind here is that this is not necessarily an I gotcha type thing. This is not something where, well, Adam, we couldn't ever do mandatory lesson planning. This is not about that. This is providing an easy to use tool that teachers can build out lessons tied closely with the curriculum mapping process. But you as a district admin or principal have the ability to see what's going on. So everyone wins. Teacher gets an easy tool, you get an easy tool, and you can actually see kind of what's happening in the district. And remember too, those lesson plans, as they're being built and aligned to those maps, in the curriculum map area, if we go back to insights, you have the ability to see how those maps are being leveraged by individual teachers and how lessons are being created accordingly. So to recap, we covered two big things. We talked about curriculum. We talked about instruction. Curriculum is all about those maps that are being built out and how they can be aligned to standards, and fields and templates can be created and great content can be achieved. A lot of tools that are available for you. And then we jumped into the instructional side where we talked about the lesson planning. The reason why I do bring those up as two different things is that when talking about pricing, Lucas and the rest of the team can work with you. So let's say you're really wanting to tackle the curriculum piece, and maybe lessons are something that you want to do in the future, or maybe lesson plans are really where you're at right now, but then curriculum is going to be a long-term project. Either way, we have ways to work with pricing to make it more convenient for you. And of course, as you are part of this Personalized Learning Cloud webinar series, you don't have to wait till the end, but just know these kind of tools all work together. So the more that you bundle, the better the pricing. Lucas, right? You can guarantee that?
Oh yeah. We'll get that on. That's on recording, so
Perfect.
it should be
Perfect.
fine. Well, we're stuck in now, Adam.
So anyway, I just wanted to say from my point of view, thank you so much for being part of this webinar series. Hopefully this is one of many to come, and one that that will continue to help your understanding of the overall PowerSchool products and how Personalized Learning Cloud can really make a difference in your district. And if there are any questions, if any follow-up that's needed, let Lucas know. He has my number. He has my email. We can set up another time to really get into your specifics. And something too that I would just challenge anyone listening to this is that if you have your own curriculum maps, share them with Lucas. He'd love to take a look at them, and we can actually showcase how some of this can look in our tool to help you with your overall needs.
Yeah.
But with that said, Lucas, do we want to stop now and see if there's any questions, or do you just want
I'll go ahead and stop right now on the record.